Cheers, guys. Epix911, welcome to the Elitist Geek VR news for Wednesday, September 14th, 2016. Let's get right into it and start with a slight change to content on the daily news videos here on this channel. So what I've kind of done today, or to this date, is report things in the order in which I receive or research them. I would make exceptions if there were like topics, bring them together, etc. But generally it was kind of in the order of research. So moving forward, I'm going to, instead of doing that, move all the games up front. So you'll have all the games up front and they will be classified by the category, whether it's Rift or Vive. The categories are going to be the four that I ultimately am going to own. So Rift, Vive, Gear VR, which I already have, and then the upcoming Sony PlayStation. We'll round it out for four. I know there's other solutions out there, and I'm certainly going to cover them news-wise, but for the more in-depth game stuff, it's going to be those four, at least initially. Now, I'm going to start with that right now, with that kind of order of things. So let's get started with the Oculus Rift. And there's a game out, it was released yesterday, called Feral Rights. And it looks to be, at first glance, it was kind of like, wow, Golden Axe, platformer a little bit, over the shoulder. You're watching your guy swing weapons. You could upgrade the weapons. But even more kind of RPG-light. There was like a bit of an inventory system as well. So definitely looks promising. My honest initial reaction was, fighting game, VR, over the shoulder, it doesn't look like it'd be that immersive. But I'm the same guy who always says, if you don't like a genre, try it in VR anyways. You may be surprised. So I'm going to follow my own advice, and when it's a bit more cost effective, grab that game, check it out, and do a video on it. So yeah, because it looks good. It looks fine. I'm just having a hard time imagining it as kind of a valid VR experience. I could be wrong. I probably am. But again, it's all going to boil down to actually trying it. The Vive and Rift both have a game called Galaxy Golf. And I don't know much about this other than, just a quick look at the graphics, but and get an idea of the gameplay. So the 3D planets are basically your courses. So how good is it? I'm not sure, but I just throw that out there as a news update more for it was released. But if I can get to it, obviously I will flesh it out. But for now, that's what I know about it. The 360-degree side of things. So there was a take on Bohemian Rhapsody from Queen, and it was released. So called the Bohemian Rhapsody. And if you've got the gear and the software, you can go check it out. But it looks really good the way they describe it, so we'll see. Now, this next kind of not really news thing yet, but, well, sort of it is, I guess. But it's kind of also a piss-off statement, and that's the one from Tim Cook about augmented reality, that he believes AR will be bigger than VR, and that it will do better. And it's that kind of ticked me off a little bit because of the timing, right? Well, even if it was on its own, it wouldn't matter. But it comes literally almost in parallel with the other negative stuff. And we don't need to kind of rehash that. But you make a statement like that, and people will connect dots where there are no dots really to connect. And that's kind of my concern there. But you know what? He was asked a question, he gave it an answer. So for what that's worth, let him have his answer. I don't necessarily agree with it, though. Now, as for news items, and this one, when I talked about kind of grouping things that are like together, this kind of falls under that. So Sony PlayStation VR has had some layoffs in Europe. Now, the problem with that is if you just read that as a headline and take that in stride with the other stuff that I just talked about, right? The challenges, well, not what I just talked about, but other articles having to do with the flat sales in the summer for the Vive and the Rift, you could reach conclusions that are pretty much negative, right? And the simple truth of the matter is a lot of game companies, because I worked for one, will lay people off and operate on cycles. So for Electronic Arts Canada, where I worked, it was sports titles. We also did third-party stuff on occasion. Diablo, Sony PlayStation, for example, is a game I worked on. Some other N64 style games. But by and large, sports titles. Now, those are definitely seasonal. I kind of got into the tech side of things, but quality assurance at EA is a pretty big department. And the regular testers, yeah, they got laid off frequently. That was just a reality. And then would get rehired. You would even see that with artists, people on the dev side of the equation too. So that is just kind of a routine thing in the gaming industry. Not like the, accounts of EA with the extra long hours. No. This is an actual thing where game companies lay off employees because of the cyclical nature of the product. So now, my understanding, and I haven't really kind of kept in touch, it doesn't happen as much, but it certainly still happens. And I think this is more an example of that. They were tasked on finishing a project for launching VR. They finished that project. Not everybody is being dismissed or laid off. It's just a group of people. So until you can actually look at the paper and see what positions, I wouldn't draw any conclusions from that other than, you know what? The contract was over and they were laid off. So that's my take on it. If you disagree, let me know in the comments below. Or if you agree. Next news piece, and this one comes from Barnett, Bayran. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your last name right, Barnett. This was an awesome article. And every once in a while, and it seems like the real doozies, schlock on that, the real doozies have been coming from you guys, the viewers, which is awesome. And again, totally appreciative of that fact. So Barnett shared a link with me, and it was an interview with Bruce Dell of Euclideon. All right. The PC Perspective was the website, so PCPER. They've got a YouTube channel, and it was a really, really good interview. Now, this is a product that I vaguely remember hearing about, and probably summarily, knowing myself like I do, probably dismissed it as being way too ambitious and didn't think anything more of it, right? Well, now they're further along. They've got clients in, geostationary type projects, but they kind of want to make inroads back into gaming. So let's explain what they do, because this has a virtual reality angle. When I talked the other day about polygons and textures, that's the standard way that modern video cards draw stuff, at least the gaming cards. You've still got some other cards for rendering, but few and far in between for doing stuff like 3D Studio Max, right? By and large, modern graphics are powered the way they've been powered for the last 20 years. You've got your game engine, you've got your graphics card, you've got your operating system, lots of layers, your peripherals, and they kind of all communicate. Now, video cards have grown in power based on their ability to output polygons. Textures and all that kind of falls under the equation. So that's how they specialized. The problem is there's limitations to that system. Hell, there's limitations to every system. And I'll show some case in points. With this solution, which this Euclideon, and the rendering engine is actually called Euclideon Unlimited. They don't deal with polygons. So it's not triangles and objects like I talked about in the other video. It's dots, atoms. Think of them just like literally like atoms is what Bruce Dell used to explain. And he did a way better job than I'll probably do. But essentially, you draw based on atoms as opposed to polygons. There's all kinds of mathematical tips and savings, and just to kind of keep it very basic. If you remember 3D stuff before the hardware accelerator cards, what we called software rendering, and there's still the odd game. Quake 2 is a good example of that. You can get Quake 2, don't use your 3D card, pick software rendering, and you're going to see it doesn't have the filtering, the anti-aliasing. It works. It's 3D. It's pixely because it doesn't have all those features of the video card. So they're kind of in that same boat, except their drawing method is totally different. We don't need to get into the details of that, but their claim to fame is they can draw anything. Anything you can scan in real life and bring into your virtual world, you can ultimately render to the screen. So the video explains a lot more. I don't need to get into it, into the crazy details. Watch the video, read it if you're interested, but the VR potential for this is huge. Gaming potential for this in general is huge. Where they want to initially go is they're using what they call hologram caves, and they currently exist in Asia and Europe. And what they do is using projectors, they basically project onto the walls. And I'm going to have a picture up for you guys of how that works. They've managed to take their technology and kind of the hologram cave and create a hybrid with moving graphics and moving world. And they've got all kinds of flexibility. You could use Euclideon for all your backgrounds and use conventional polygon style created objects for the characters in the game, for example. Or you could have Euclideon do all of that. And it does it all very cheaply, and it's not very resource intensive. In fact, it can accomplish a lot of it just reading from the hard drive, which is amazing. So yeah, neither the time or place for that, but check it out in the link below. The VR potential is huge. I personally think the HMD is the better way to go now, because the projected hologram, it's not at that kind of level of sophistication yet, and you've definitely got a layer. So with the HMDs, we've got kind of the artificial, the field of view is really the limitation. And of course, having something bulky on your head. With the Euclidean and the hologram kind of cave style is you've got distance between you and the walls that breaks the immersion, makes it harder to believe that you are immersed, right? That's only going to get better. And ultimately, it's that would be kind of like the holodeck that we think of in Star Trek, right? So very interesting. Thanks again for that, Barnett. Have a look, guys, and all kinds of potential for this company in all areas, VR being one exciting aspect of that. Oculus has confirmed their Guardian virtual boundary system coming in the next SDK update for developers. So let's dwell on that one for a sec, because we mentioned that specifically back in June when we first heard word of some of the changes, and we connected some of those dots together along with Upload VR, and we're able to paint a picture, and the picture looks like this. Oculus made changes to their SDK to allow for additional cameras for tracking. So we know that was for sure. We have the Oculus Touch capabilities launching very soon. What we didn't have was a Chaperone style system. You could, through some means, use through Steam the Vive Chaperone to a limited degree, but it didn't have its own system. Well, now it does, and it's this Guardian. And it's going out in the next SDK, like I said, to devs, and it plays out very similar. So you've got a line when you kind of go out of bounds. So very cool that they've made that official. Like I said, we probably all kind of knew that was coming. We just didn't know when. Now we know soon, and that the devs are getting it next update for themselves. So very cool for those who like the room scale experience, like myself. It's not the only thing I like. I'm perfectly happy with seated experiences, but to have an option for room, to me, that's huge. Next headline, Farpoint developer explains how the PS4 Pro improves PlayStation VR games. I love that headline because it was much ado about nothing. It promises to, kind of reward your cravings with something either very juicy or very sweet, and accomplishes neither, and ends up being a huge letdown. So I saw the article in Upload VR. I read through it. I thought I saw something when I saw a statement. Now, running on a PS4 Pro, what difference did the new hardware make? And the answer, as I'm kind of like reading through, the answer was this. As far as I could tell, textures were definitely sharper, particle effects more discernible, the clarity of the image even helped gameplay as well. So that really told us nothing. Speculation that things look better and smoother isn't really evidence that it is much faster and smoother. So I was hoping in that article we'd see some actual meat in terms of how the PS4 Pro, maybe we missed something, and all the criticism flying around about the Pro was something missed. So still looking forward to launch day. Can't wait. Probably going to hold off on the Pro and use the PS4, at least initially. But yeah, I'm just at this point, I'm just curious. I want it released so we can try it. If the gameplay is awesome, none of the other stuff is going to matter at all. It'll be a pain in the ass at times, but important? No. What's important is PlayStation VR sells, and it sells a lot. If that's accomplished, the greater objective will be accomplished, and that is sending VR on its way with a strong start. So soon. Last news piece has to do with a company that was kind of going under the radar, and they're called Vertebrae. They've raised $10 million. Now, their claim to VR fame is ad-supported monetization through VR. So your imagination can run wild with that one, but it's everything that you would think, right? 360-degree content. Maybe it's strategic placement in a Warner Brothers Batman game. Maybe Coke is shown in that somewhere with the Coke label. All that type of stuff Vertebrae is into. So $10 million will definitely allow them to do additional R&D to deploy advertising in new and very unique ways, I have no doubt. All right, guys, that's it. There's a couple of gameplay videos that I recorded during my staycation that are literally just edits away. One satisfying game of raw data where I literally just went balls to the wall, no strategy turrets, no nothing, just me dual wielding and copious amounts of brute force and ignorance as a screw you, buddy, final salute to raw data for evading me for so long when I was literally playing at a handicap because I was an idiot in not realizing that I had stuff to unlock. But that's for another video. All right, guys, as always, cheers, and we will definitely catch you on the VR flip side.